So, unless you've been living on an island like Tom Hanks in Castaway, WWDC, also known as Dodo, has just happened. And trust me, yo, there's some amazing new updates to look forward to. Like Tim, Craig, the Apple team, they got us like that. And one of the main things is this new replacement for CoreData called SwiftData, which is just, mwah, it looks so magnifique. Aline, trust me, it looks good.
You look good! You look good!
And in this video, I'm actually going to be showing you how easy it is to persist data by building this simple to-do list app that features CRUD operations. So let's get straight into this video. Now, if you're watching this, there's actually two things. I don't know why I'm doing two like that. You'll actually need a version of Xcode 15 and upwards, whether that's the beta version or the release. And you'll also need to keep in mind, before you start throwing your tomatoes at me, that this is the first week of Dub, and it's actually possible that this stuff that I'm showing you may change. But if things do change, make sure to subscribe to the channel, because I'll 100% hit, I don't know why I'm doing this. Make sure that I have a new video that actually shows you all the new updates and everything that you need to know. And if I don't, I promise I'll buy you your favorite chocolate bar, right? Unless you like bounties. If you like bounties, I'm judging you right now in the past, present, and also my future self as well, because they're grim. Anyway, let's get into the video. All right, cool. So I've actually got an empty SwiftUI project here. Now, normally when you're working with, CoreData, you'd have to create something like an XC model file. But when we're working with SwiftData, it's actually a bit different. So instead, what we have to do is define a model, and a model is basically the data that we want to save into our storage. So I'm going to create a brand new Swift file, and then we want a Swift file, like I said. I'm just going to call this to-do item, like so. Cool. So I mentioned before that we have to define our model. So I'm going to define our model, and then we'll just break it down. So we've got our structure here, and you can see that with our to-dos, what we're going to have is a title timestamp is critical, so whether it's important or not, and as well as has it been completed. Now, one thing to note here that you'll see is that we've actually marked this as a class. So when you're working with SwiftData, your models have to be represented as a class and not a struct. So that's super important. Now, right now, if we was to use this in SwiftData, nothing would happen and it wouldn't work. So in order to fix this, what we're going to need to do is actually import SwiftData. So let's just import SwiftData now. So at the top here, we'll say import SwiftData. And in order to actually mark this as a model in SwiftData, like you would have an entity in CoreData, you have to use a new macro called model. So we're going to mark this with the model macro. Pretty much it, man. Like, that's all you need to do to basically define a model in SwiftData. So we've got the model ready, but the next thing is that right now our app has no idea about this model. So it's looking at us like, bruh, what is a to-do item? So after you define your model, the next thing you need to do is actually register this into your SwiftUI app using a container. So if you go into the root of your app, so here within your app's main entry point, we need to import SwiftData. And then we want to say here, and then now here, we basically specify the types that it should listen to. So our type here is going to be to-do item.self. Cool. And now we have a model set up, and we also have as well our app listening to that, so we can put it in the storage. So far, we've only got it registering and listening to a model. We actually don't have anything to help us save this data. So I'm just going to quickly build some UI to help us just create some kind of to-do. So let's just create a new SwiftUI view, and we'll call it create view. Just to save you some time, right? I'm going to do the typing. Sit back, relax, get yourself a packet of crisps or something. I'll type this out and then we'll break it down. So you can see here, nothing too crazy. We just got some text fields, date picker, toggle, and a button for helping us bind and also perform some kind of action when someone completes finishing out this form. So we need to actually present this view when someone actually taps on a button in our main content view. So we want to go into our content view, and then at the top here, we want to create a state variable. And for now, we just want to have a navigation stack that allows us to present some kind of view. So I'm just going to take out this VStack, image and text, and I'm just going to wrap this in a navigation stack. And then on here, I'm just going to add a toolbar with a button that allows us to toggle showing the create screen. So now you should see your plus button here. Now in the button action, we're just toggling whether we should show that screen or not. And if you tap on it, nothing's going to happen because we're not using the sheet modifier. So let's do that now. So now what we have here is our sheet modifier bound to the show create, and we're just going to show that to do screen, you know, to create to do. So with the presentation detent, so it just looks, I think it looks nice to me. So it just looks in like smaller version. So if I tap on this, you'll now see that we get this view here to create a to-do. We can dismiss it. Cool. So now we have our view for helping us actually create a to-do item. Now, if you worked with CoreData before, a lot of the stuff that I'm talking to you about won't be foreign in terms of a concept. But essentially, when you're working with SwiftData, it's very similar. You have something called a context. And the context is basically where you manipulate your data storage. So the best way to think about a context is think about it like you're going to a supermarket and you have a trolley with all your items. With your context, you can either add items. So that will be your basket. This is me holding a trolley. Fuck it. This is me holding a trolley. So you'll basically go around with your trolley. And then what you can now do is you can basically either add items or remove items, or you can even update items within your trolley. So this is your context where you can manipulate data. It's the same thing with SwiftData. What we need to do is actually create our model, so our object, and then once we're finished with it, we then want to insert it into the context. So back in our create view, so we actually want to create some kind of state for this view to listen to. So here below our environment, I'm just going to create an instance of our, model data. Now, when we do this, you'll get a crash. And the reason being is because right now this create to do view is expecting some kind of container because this is a model and it's going to be in the context. So in order to fix this, what we need to do is just say here on our create to do view dot model container for, and then register that to do item dot self, and then that should resolve the issue, as you can see. So we want to bind this to our form. So rather than us having these constants here, we're just going to replace this with item. Now the is completed is going to be a separate action when we call, handle update later on in the video. But the nice thing about this when you're working with SwiftData is that we now don't need to worry about having to manually update the data within our model context. This will automatically bind and update that for us. Now, right now, our view has no idea about, a context. So in order to access that, there's actually a new environment value that we can access called model context. So here below our environment, we're going to say our environment, and then we're going to say dot model context var context, like so. Cool. So now we're able to access this context here, and all we simply need to do now is just insert it. So we'll say with animation, and then within here we'll say context dot insert item, like so. So it's going to insert the item with all the updates that were bound to it via the form. And the nice thing about this is that with SwiftData, we actually don't need to call save on the context that you would in CoreData. It's automatically saved for us every time. This is all we need to basically create and insert data into SwiftData. Now that we have this, we actually want to see how to get the data when we, insert it, right? So all we need to do is back in our content view, we just want to import SwiftData again. And in order to actually fetch data, there's a new property wrapper called query. And what query allows you to do is exactly what it says. Just literally create a query to grab the data. Now, the nice thing about query is that if you specify the type in a collection, it will automatically just fetch that data for you. So all you need to do is just sit back, get yourself a foot rub, and it'll do the work for you. Now, underneath our state, let's see how we can use this. So we're going to say at query, and then we're going to say private var items, and it's going to be an array of to do item. Cool. So rather than us having a text here, what I actually want to do is replace this with a list with a for each. So let's just delete this text, and then we'll say list, and then within this list we'll add a for each. Now this is going to be bound to the items, and then here we'll just say item in. Now the nice thing about this is that whenever this query changes, our for each will get re-rendered and show those updates. So again, we don't really need to do anything at all. Now within this for each, I want to have some UI to present to the user in terms of like to-do information. So I'm gonna type this out and then we'll break it down. Make sure you check out the link in the description box to basically check out all of this as well. Cool. So now we have all of our UI. So what we're going to do is just run this on the simulator. Now, the reason why I'm not using the preview is because I want to show you the data actually being persisted between app launches. So let's just get this ready. So now let's just hit the plus button. We'll just give this to do a name. And the keyboard is hella buggy in Xcode 15. So go, we'll just say here, go gym. It's important. Create. And now you can see that the item is in the list. So if I actually stop this and actually run it again, you'll see that the data is still there persisted. So like literally it's not a lot of code to get this working. Like it's really nice. A small improvement I am going to make is because I don't like the fact that this doesn't have a title here. So I'm just going to quickly add in a navigation title. My to-do list. And let's just rerun this. Better. So later on in this video, I'm actually going to be showing you how to handle updates as well, because when you're working with CRUD, updating data, especially in CoreData, can be a bit of a, it can be a bit of a tricky one. So make sure you stick around for that, because SwiftData makes it super easy for us to do, like, honestly. And if you're actually liking this video so far, feel free to give it a like, and also as well, feel free to leave a comment in the comment description below with what you're looking forward to using from DubDub, or what you'd like to see me do in terms of videos and courses and whatnot. Feel free to let me know below. So we've looked at how to create and read. How do we actually delete data? Well, again, super simple. So I'm going to collapse the HStack here so we can just get a bit more space so it's clearer to see. What we'll need is to import our model context again. So I'm just going to go to our create, copy this, and then we'll access this from the environment like so. And then we're going to add a swipe action onto this HStack. So we're going to say swipe action like so. And then we're just going to add in a button. Now the role for this button is going to be destructive, so we know that it's like a cancel button. And then on the action we'll get to, but for the label, we're going to just show a SF symbol. So within this button, if you want to delete an item from, SwiftData, all you need to do is on the context, just call the function delete. That's pretty much it. So we're going to say with animation and then context dot delete, and then we'll just pass in the object from the for each for the current item that you're trying to swipe on, like so. Cool. And that's all you need. So let's just run this, see what happens. And if we swipe across now, we have the delete button. And if I tap on delete, it removes the item. And if we rerun the app, you'll see that the items are no longer there. So that's all we need to do. Pretty nice. I'm just going to create another to-do item, and we're just going to say eat. I like to eat, man. I'm a big boy. We'll say eat, and we'll say create. But you'll see here that I actually have this button here where I'm actually able to tap whether an item is completed or not. Now, right now, this actually isn't doing anything. But if I actually just close off the swipe actions, open up a HStack, and go to this button, you'll see that in here, we want to update this to set the value on our item. Because if you go to the model, we have a variable here called is completed. So we actually want to toggle this on and off. So we want to toggle this to true if someone taps on this button whilst it's in that state. So within the button, if you actually want to update some kind of like item, well, you want to update your model in SwiftData, all you need to do is just directly mutate that data. And again, it will automatically save for you. So realistically, within our button action here, we just need to say with animation, and then on our item dot is completed, we just want to call toggle. So it'll toggle it to true or false. And what will happen is not only will this reflect the changes on our UI, it will also update that within our storage as well. So let's test it out. So if we just run this again, if we tap on this, you'll now see that it says completed. And if we just do another launch, you'll see that that state was persisted. So again, manipulating your model is all you need to do to basically update your data. Now that was a really simple example, but you might be in some situations where you need to update the entire item via some kind of form, like someone wants to update all of the items. How would you do that? Again, it's not actually difficult either. So in order to do that, the first thing we're going to need to do is actually create a new view called update to-do view. All right, cool. So now in this update to do view, we have our Swift data imported, and also as well, we're just inserting our to do item that we want to update. Now, something new that you might realize here is this bindable. So before, before in iOS 16 and below, you'd have a app binding, but with the new SwiftUI data mode, with the new SwiftUI data flow, we've actually got this new property wrapper that allows us to bind observable objects to views. So if you didn't know this, the actual app model macro converts your model into an observable object automatically. So we're going to use app bindable to connect the two views together. So within the child view, we can actually perform, updates. And I'm doing that weird hand thing again. So now our item is bound to each item here in the form, and then we just simply call dismiss. Now I had a preview here, but I've actually commented it out because for some reason, I don't know why, I'm getting some weird errors and I didn't want to look into it because this is just a beta version. So what we want to do is actually present this view now and actually pass it the item that we want to edit. So back in our content view, we actually want to present that via a sheet, and we can use a sheet modifier that allows to pass data through. So the first thing to use that sheet modifier is we're going to create a state property. It's going to be an optional to do item. So this is going to hold the to do item that we want to pass through and edit. And then when someone actually swipes across here, rather than us having just only a button to destroy, we're going to have another button that allows us to edit an item. So now when you swipe on this button, the edit button, we're just going to have it where we assign it to that edit variable. And then below our sheet, we're going to bind this to that new state property. So we're going to use the sheet item, and this is going to be bound to that to do edit. So whenever this changes, this will trigger the sheet. And on dismiss, we want to clear it. So we're going to reset that to do edit back to nil so that we don't have anything in it anymore, and you can just set it again. And then this content here is going to be item, and then our update to do view is going to accept an item like so. Cool, sweet. So now we're passing this into our view. So one thing I hope you've realized is that when I go into the update to do view, when we call dismiss to update, we're actually not calling any additional code. So let's just see if this works. So we go to eat, hit the pencil. If I now change this to eat now and hit update, you'll see that it actually updates that for me. And if we rerun this, it's persisted. So because SwiftData is automatically saving changes every time you make a UI update to it, we don't actually need to call any additional code. All we need to do is just literally just bind our models to our UI, and it will automatically update and save it for us. Now, there's nothing wrong with what we have here so far, but what about if you want to, filter out the completed and uncompleted items on the screen? Right now, we're just showing all the items that it can just fetch from the database. So let's say I create a new item here, and this new to do is going to have a new item of go gym. And this is important, but we want this to be next week. We're going to be a bit lazy, man. We'll go gym next week, Saturday. Hit create. Cool. So right now you can see that I've got next week, and I've got go gym, and I've got eat now, and I'm showing completed and uncompleted items. What I want to do is actually take out this completed one. Now, in order to do that with SwiftData, again, it is super simple. So on the query now, what we can say is we can specify how we want this to basically filter out the data that you see on the screen. And there's a new parameter available to us called filter, as you can see here. So I'm going to say filter. And then just to make this a bit clearer, we'll hit enter. we have to use the new macro syntax to help us actually specify what we want our query to filter on. So we're going to say pound, and then this is going to be pound and then predicate like so. And then we now want to say in the curly braces how we want this data to be filtered. So in here, I'm just going to say $0 dot is completed is equal to false, like so. And this is going to basically strip out and only show items where is completed is equal to false. So if we rerun this, we should only see one item in our list. So let's run this again. Cool. And now you can see we can only see the uncompleted item. So this is no different to you literally just writing a syntax for a high order function like filter. So we can now use that within here for building our queries, which in my opinion is super nice. Now, what about if I want to add a new item? So let's say here, we're going to go to the cinema. So I need to, well, actually, you know what? I need to go to work. So we're going to say go to work. Now you might be wondering, why am I not using the keyboard on my Mac? I don't know what's going on with this beta, but it's a bit buggy, man. So we're going to say go to work, and we're going to say this is to go to work in an hour's time. So we're going to say it like 1 p.m., 1:46 p.m. Cool. So let's create this. Cool. So right now, go to work is actually the most recent thing that I, inputted, because it's actually today, and go to gym is actually next week. So how would we actually reverse the order of this and actually make go to work the most recent one? Well, we can actually specify a sort order as well on our query. So after our filter, if we just do comma, if we just type out sort, you'll now see that we're able to use a key path to specify on what property should we sort this on. Now I'm going to say / timestamp. So we're going to sort this based on the actual date. So if we just run this, we should now see that go to work is the first one in the list and go to the gym is the second, because it's now sorting it based on the timestamp. We can also specify what order we want this to be sorted on as well. So I can now create a new parameter and use the order parameter, and we can say whether we want this to be forward or reverse. So I can actually say I want this to be forward. And if we run this, you'll now see that go to work is the first one. But if I change this to be reverse, you'll now see that it's actually reversed the order for us. So we can actually specify what order we want it to be sorted on as well. So as you can see, yeah, Apple have really got us like that. They're really looking after us, and SwiftData makes our lives a whole lot easier when it comes to persistent data. Now, I will say that even though we do have SwiftData, knowing some of the concepts from CoreData is super critical and can actually help speed up your knowledge with understanding how this works. And if you want to check out how to learn CoreData, I have a video on my channel that you should be able to see here that teaches you everything that you need to know. So make sure that you check it out. And another thing that will help you out as well is understanding how navigation works too. So make sure you check out this navigation playlist that I have on my channel too. That's everything from me. I'll catch you on a bit. Deuces.